Hello, welcome back to Daejahtalkstv. It's been a while. I haven't done YouTube in a second because I had to figure out exactly what I wanted to do and bring on this page. And more, I realized I wanted to bring fun conversations with some of the amazing people that I've met through TikTok. People who love media, people who love television, who love talking about it. And today we're going to start right off the top. We're going to start with Justin Jordan, also known as Freddie's roommate, but I will let him introduce himself to you all. Here he is.
Hi everyone! Oh my gosh, it's such an honor. Is this the part where John Baptiste plays some on the piano, the roots come in like yes. I sit down like this is a virtual show, but I sit down on a couch, I wave to the audience. I'm like, hey everyone, so glad to be here. Wow. Wow, you're so much taller in person. Oh my gosh. But hi.
Hello. So tell the people who you are, where they can find you, what you're into.
Hi, my name is Justin Jordan, full name out there. Please don't dox me, but I am Freddie's roommate on TikTok, and I talk about or I ask questions a lot on TikTok. How to dress me? What does this show mean? What does this movie mean? That kind of thing. So if you have any questions that you could help me answer, please find me on TikTok. I would have loved it.
There it is. And that's actually how I started following you because I saw your fashion content. And I was like, this is fun. And you have so much like energy and joy in all your videos. So I was like, yes, follow. And then you were just like everything that came up on my For You page for like a week was just like you, but it was mostly your media stuff. And I was like, oh my God, this is so much better than what I thought I was signing up for. And I was already excited. So I love it.
Yeah, I'm scared that I pigeonholed myself. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I'll be honest with you. I know nothing about clothes, nothing about fashion or anything, but TikTok thinks that I do for some strange reason. But it's like literally like it's like a suggestion box.
Yeah.
My TikTok is basically a suggestion box at this point. Just tell me what to do and I'll do it.
And
You
as
know?
someone who was advocating for the shorter inseams, I am so happy that you're
Oh
taking.
my God. you know, it all worked out. I was skeptical. I was very skeptical. Back in my day, what am I talking about? I'm only like 26 years old. If you had shorts but above the knee, it was game over, man. You were not cool at all. Are you kidding me? Especially like basketball shorts, they need to go down to your ankle at least. Are you kidding me? Nah, everything has to be 3X, 2X, 5X.
New worlds, new world.
hmm but yeah, I I love talking about nerd stuff too. So this is a great opportunity for me to get all this out in the open. Give me hot takes.
Yeah.
So
I'm going to preemptively predict that you'll be a pretty regular guest on the YouTube just because
yes.
we nerd out about similar things. And I think if people don't enjoy watching black nerds talking about TV, they're confused. I don't know. They're missing out.
Oof, they are missing out because this is a perspective that needs to happen. More of us need to be talking to each other. We need to stand by each other too because it's rough out here on these internet streets. We're getting dragged for no reason.
It really is. It really is. Sometimes you just gotta hit up the group chat and just be like, I'm not fighting in my comments anymore. But if y'all want to,
Oh, exactly. You know what? Let me hype up Deja real quick. You know how I found Deja? Was the guy who wrote what was his name? Slave Pay. The guy who wrote that. He shouted you out, and I
that
was
is
like,
true.
"Who is this?" And then I was like, "You know what? I gotta hit the follow." So Deja's way more famous than me, guys.
Nah, nah, couldn't be.
You gonna use this time to be humble? No, don't
I'm
believe
I'm using all the time to be humble. But if you want to talk about people who aren't humble
it.
and
No, but I was
unfortunate,
like, "What? You're getting shut up from real celebrities? Tony went Okay, I can't wait. I better get front row seats to your show. If it's a play or a movie,
you'll be
I
in it.
was, I'll be ready. You know what? I acted in high school. I was Tom Robinson in To Kill a Mockingbird. You know what? That was a sign that something was up. But you know what? Well, that's another day. It's
To
another day.
unpack something to unpack one of these days.
And no complaints, no complaints. But I'm here.
Yes, you are, and I'm absolutely thrilled. And so we're gonna be talking about White Lotus. Do you want to give the first attempt at giving a little summary on what White Lotus is.
Okay, yeah. White Lotus is a show on HBO Max that centers around, I guess, three to four groups of people coming to an island for an island vacation and how that island kind of changes them. Don't worry, there's no horror involved. Well, there is a light death, but you know what? That's beside the point. I think what I wanted to talk about with White Lotus is what is the intention of the show and what did it achieve that? Because when I talk about shows, what really frustrates me in like these nerd spaces and these TikTok spaces is that 9 times out of 10, when someone's talking about these shows, they say, "Oh, it sucks. Oh, I hated this character," and you know what I mean. And it doesn't allow for any like nuance or any like discussion about it because it's either like a thumbs up or a thumbs down kind of culture, especially on TikTok. But what I loved about White Lotus is that it gave you so much to talk about and so much to ruminate on in a way that I can't give it like a thumbs up or a thumbs down either way. And that's mind you, is the show a perfect show? Absolutely not. But I think the creators thought they had a message that didn't get conveyed, and I'm curious as to you think like what you think if that's successful in your eyes. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yes. I know what you mean. It's you're talking and it's like I'm like, yeah, I like that. And then I think about like, what how does Deja want to respond? But it's like many shows, and a lot of them that come out of HBO as well, are about terrible people. And I think there's like a line to be like messed with. Like there's Secession. I don't think they're trying to teach me anything. Those people are terrible, and I like watching them being terrible. I hate them,
Hmm.
all of them, but that's it. Um, yeah, I hate them all. But
Okay, let me write down Succession. I need to watch that.
listen, you'll first episode, it's like atrocious. I watched that with a friend, and they were atrocious in the best way. I watched it with a friend, and they were like, "Hey, like, I know you really like this show, but like, am I supposed to hate the characters?" Yeah, yes, you are. You're doing it right. They are excess in excess. Um, but this one seems to really want to teach the audience something. It has a lot of really pointed remarks that it's like, it's trying to be like, hey, watch out for this. And then, of course, it's exacerbated by the fact that it all takes place on a resort in Hawaii, of all places. Um, so I think there's also just the timing of its release that is really, really intense. And even it
Mhm.
being filmed, it was filmed in a closed 4 seasons that, if I'm not mistaken, was closed because of COVID. And that's how they were able to take the resort and film. A lot of layers there, but I think maybe if we go through a little bit about some of the groups of people that we see, so I can start that off. So from the beginning of the show, we know that there is someone who dies at the resort.
Mhm.
Someone. That is how we open up the series. We are well aware of that. Do we want to do spoilers in this?
Wait, before we spoil, I want to know who you thought was going to die and were you surprised about the person who actually died? Because for my money, I was telling my partner, I was like, it can't be the wife because that's too obvious. Alexandria Daddaro's character, what was her name? Rachel.
Yeah.
I thought, it can't be Rachel. There is no way. That'd be too obvious. But
Yeah.
then towards the end, and I was like, oh wait, it might be Rachel. There might be a double fake. And I was like, okay, no, no, no. My guess was the old guy, Jennifer Coolidge's boyfriend that comes in because he was coughing and he was like, "Oh, I'm gonna die soon." I was like, "I see you, show. It's gonna be him." And we had this whole thing about who's gonna die, who's this mystery, but spoilers for the White Lotus. Leave now because it's a great discussion of a show. But the person
Well,
who died,
maybe we talk about that reveal towards the end. So the
fair.
spoiler-free people, you can watch. You know now two people who don't die, but you probably should have suspected that. Um, but exactly, a part of the mystery, we get that right from the beginning. Like that is, that you're going to be stuck in there trying to figure out who's murdering. Even when the scenes are quiet, you're like, do they seem like they would kill someone, or maybe are they dying of natural causes? Like you're watching every scene with that lens. One of the groups we meet is a married couple, Shane and Rachel. Um, Shane is played by Jake Lacey, which I think is so funny because I think he's just cast as like default white guy. Usually the unassuming white guy who's like kind of nice. But in this one, he's just a jerk, just insufferable. So they're a newlywed couple. He comes for money, she doesn't, and the wife Rachel is kind of dealing with some of that as well as the realization that her husband sucks. So there's one group. You could pick one of the other groups of people we meet and explain them a little bit.
Okay, so next we have the, I guess the family. I don't know what their last names is. Let me look this up real quick. The Mossbacher family. And the Mossbacher family is a mom, a dad, a daughter, and a son, and their daughter's friend. And I think the most interesting relationship in this like pod is the relationship between Olivia and Paula. But we'll get there when we get, when we get there. But it's a family who's trying to take their family vacation. The mom is this super successful businesswoman who has like meetings still in vacation, and the dad just wants to spend some time with his son who is constantly on a electronical device of some sort the entire time.
Yeah,
So
yeah. So that's one of the groups we meet. I fully agree that the most interesting pair is Olivia and Paula. We're definitely going to talk about them. And then we meet Jennifer Coolidge. I could not even tell you what her character's name was.
it's Tanya, I think.
Anya, yeah.
Jennifer Coolidge is the thesis of the show. Like, she is the entire show wrapped up into like this one simple message. And at first I hated it, but then I got it, and I was like, "Damn, Jennifer Coolidge can still act?
No,
What?"
because it's like in one sense, it's like this is the character she always plays. But
Hmm.
like one, the fact that she can play a character or like say a word and you know it's her. I was watching Gravity Falls the other day and I went, is that Jennifer Coolidge? No matter where she is or what she's doing, she's absolutely iconic. And then in this one, she gets to take that sort of like archetypical role that she plays and just deepen it so much and like really get in her bag. And we love it. She's coming off the heels of the death of her mother, who she has a complicated relationship with. She's ever spiraling, and also kind of searching for love. She wishes she had a man there, as she tells one of the hotel employees that she borrows for a while. Um, that's
Oh,
Jennifer Coolidge.
we'll get there when we get there.
Want
We'll get there
to
when we get there.
hit the employees real quick?
Yeah, and then there's the hotel staff, which is led by this guy named Armand, who is a very eccentric kind of guy, and his, I guess, one to two hotel staff, Delinda, and what was the other boy's name?
Dylan.
Dylan. Oh, and then the one who got pregnant and we'll never see again, but we'll get there when we get there.
Yeah.
But I think I don't think there's a boring group in this entire, or boring character in this entire show, which I can't say a lot, but every single character is super interesting in this show.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, they don't leave you bored, and I think a big part of that is the way they set up the mystery from the very beginning, where they're like, someone's gonna die, and then you realize you kind of don't like any of these people, but like you're intrigued by them at the very least. So every interaction has like layers of subtext of essentially, are you a murderer? Maybe. Um, so, all right, where do we want to begin? Because there's so many directions to go in.
Okay, I think we have to start with Olivia and
I
Paula.
was so hoping you would say that.
For me, the crux of this. Oh, let me explain the cut guess. Paula and Olivia are two friends. Paula's the friend that came on the family vacation, which is something I always wanted to do as a kid because my little brother was lame. Sorry, Christian, but but they have a thing where they are the tightest of tight at the beginning. They're judging everyone who gets on the boat, all the other vacation goers. They're reading together, they're hanging out together until Paula meets a boy named Kai, which is a part of the hotel staff. And Kai is really interesting because his family had some sort of stake or ownership on the island that they're on and was then kind of swindled or bought out from under them by this hotel chain, which Armand now manages. The thing that makes this interesting is that, am I allowed to spoil? Am I allowed to spoil now?
I think as long as we don't spoil the big ending until later, let's do it.
So Paula keeps this secret from Olivia, the white girl, and she says that every time Paula gets a boyfriend, Olivia will try to steal them because Olivia always wants something that Paula has. So once Olivia finds out about this secret boyfriend, she becomes very suspicious of Paula. And their relationship kind of dissolves because Olivia starts flirting with Kai and she starts wondering where Paula's going at night, etc., etc. But the main thing, once Paula finds out about Kai's predicament and his family predicament is that they need like a lawyer or a lot of money to hire even a good lawyer, Paula comes up with the plan of stealing some of Olivia's mother's jewelry to and steal it and pawn it off and get enough money for a lawyer because one piece of jewelry is about $75,000, which is crazy. It wasn't even that good of a bracelet, but that's beside the point. So then once Kai attempts to steal this bracelet, Olivia's mother comes back to the hotel and finds Kai caught in the act. And the father bum rushes it. It was almost a hostage situation at this point. But then Kai eventually gets caught and goes to jail. And Paula is devastated because it was her idea, number one. And number two, there is absolutely nothing she could do to help Kai. She doesn't have money to bail him out. She's not going to go to jail and then incriminate herself. So Kai is sent to jail, and Olivia knows that Paula is the one that told him because Olivia's birthday is the code to the safe. So the friendship is ruined. Olivia is confused about why would Paula do something about this? What does she want? What does she want the money? And Paula, I guess, kind of says this like statement of the show or the thesis of the show that Olivia, you may think you're some kind of rebel, or you may think that you are kind of the coolest one of your family, the liberal one. But when push came to shove, you, I guess, closed ranks with your family and realized that you were more alike than not. And the people who have to suffer are always going to be people of color or the people who originally owned this island. And Olivia doesn't get it. And then their friendship is ruined for the rest of the show. And I think what makes me like really this is probably the most interesting relationship in the show because I think the writers think that Paula is the one that we should root for and the one that we should be like, yeah, Paula's right, this, that, and the other. When Paula, in my opinion, is just as guilty as Olivia, and if not more guilty than Olivia at this point because of what she puts Kai through. Because if you break it down, Paula, it was her idea to steal the necklace, or not the necklace, but the bracelet. And number two, it was Kai who had to suffer the consequences, a native born person on this island. And even though Paula is a person of color, there's still that aspect of class.
Mm-hmm.
She is also a consumer of this island, and her nature is to consume as well. And even though she was trying to help, she is still a consumer, just like Olivia and her family was. But I don't think that's the intention of the show. What do you think?
Well, I feel like that's a big part of it to me is like the show, it tries to make a very multi-dimensional set of issues very one-dimensional. And I think it tries to hinge a lot on race just based off of how you see the people of color in the show and like what they deal with. but it forgets that there's like so many layers to this. And when you're talking about Hawaii specifically, you're talking about a place that is home for some and consumed by others. And nobody in this really plays the role of home except Kai. And
Mm.
it's consumed by Paula too. Like that is a central part of like the impacts of colonialism. I did think it was interesting that they made it jewelry because why did the bracelet, why was it worth that much? But we have the whole internet arguing over Beyonce and blood diamonds. And
Yeah.
I mean, just jewels as a resource. But then I was also like, of all resources, I don't know. It didn't feel as poignant as it could have been because it is Hawaii. I was like, okay, interesting, but they were definitely attempting to say something, and I think they made a jab at liberalism, but they didn't fully deconstruct the way class plays into that at all.
Mhm. I think what makes me confused, like, is this intentional? Because Paula never goes to rescue Kai. She never is willing to risk anything to help Kai. She doesn't risk her situation. She doesn't risk her like quote unquote meal ticket or ride home. She never risks anything for Kai. And I hopefully if that is the intention, I think it was kind of successful. But if it wasn't, I don't know what to tell you. Because I don't know. It's weird also because if we really want to talk about these things of consumerism and native things and native land, why isn't Kai a more central part of the story? And if like and is his absence at the end kind of the commentary? Like like these people never really cared about Kai. She never really cared about Kai because in my opinion, Paul still quote unquote consumed him.
Yeah.
Like Kai was ultimately a product of the island that she
Yeah.
consumed and threw away.
First of all, that's just like a great way to put it. We just need a pause to acknowledge that insight. But I think that like brings us to one of the other things we wanted to talk about, which is like how successful could this be in the message it wants to tell while centering whiteness? So it, it's complicated, I think, because it does advertise itself as a satire, which I think we could talk about later if it felt like a satire to you. But I think at some point you have to look at it and be like, so this was filmed in Hawaii. Um, it, and where were all the Hawaiians? And like the second season or whatever, um, we're still looking at a cast mostly of like white mainland people. Like we're not in the process giving the space and attention to people like Kai who don't get to be central characters. Like at what point is your message undercut by the fact that you don't seem to be applying that to the creation of the art? You know?
Mm. I think I go back and forth on this a lot. Is that like, is it their responsibility to do those things that we're talking about? Like, center those voices? It's not their responsibility. But would it be better if they did? Yes, it would be extremely better if they did. But at the same time, I almost think I don't want to fix the White Lotus. You know what I mean? I
Mm-hmm.
don't think like White Lotus season 2 would be better if it was like all Hawaiian born cast this time. Because the nature of the show is consumption. And if that's the nature of the show, I don't want to see those native born people lose like Kai did at the same time. Because if that's the theme, is that the central question of the show, they're probably going to lose, because it's kind of hard to beat a hotel chain.
So do you think that puts limitations on like the power of something like this that tries to challenge something that it ends up participating in? I'm hitting you with
Ooh,
hard questions today.
ooh. I think that HBO itself is not in a position to even answer those questions fully. they're not. That was a car. They're not even in a position to like fully do that because if we look at HBO as like the rest of the shows and how it examines whiteness and how it centers whiteness, if we look at like the shows like Girls,
Yeah.
it's about white women, not girls. You know what I mean? And if we look at like even like the greatest show, one of the greatest shows of all time, The Wire, it still centers whiteness at the in the end. If you watch all, it's still about whiteness and how also about consumerism and capitalism and how it affects the city. You know what I mean? So if we look at HBO's track record, I don't think they're gonna change anytime soon. Do they have a responsibility to? Probably, but they don't have to if they don't want to. But at the same time, I look at shows like Insecure and I'm like, they could do it. They could do it if they really wanted to, you know?
Yeah, HBO is interesting because it's known as being on the cutting edge. Like, it's definitely something that through like things like The Sopranos and The Wire and Oz, like changed the history of television. And I think it's still changing it with things like um, I May Destroy You and Insecure and all these shows. But then I think it just also raises questions about like, dang, if this is the cutting edge, we have a ways to go. And I love HBO content. Love it. And I appreciate the way that if nothing else, its content does make you question like how we interact with art and like what we can do with it and where we hit a wall as far as how much art can do and what it can function as and all of those things.
Hmm.
But I'm also an HBO Max addict, so
Really?
I can't stop.
Really? Okay, because I discovered over quarantine the Anna Kendrick show, Love Life. That was good. I thought I was gonna hate it. I was like, this is pretty good, you know?
Yeah, they're definitely creating some amazing content and then some other content. Since they have more literally become the home box office these days.
Oh, for sure.
But another thing I wanted to talk about, and I think we touched on it with Paula and Olivia, but was I can't remember, Brenda, the
What are you
woman,
talking?
the woman who worked at the hotel.
Oh, Belinda.
Tanya and Belinda.
Yeah,
Ooh,
yeah.
that hurt.
Okay. I think that pairing is also one of. I said this earlier before the show. It's the pieces of the show, Tanya and Belinda, because all I wrote this down. All Jennifer Coolidge does is consume and consume and consume until she's had enough, you know. And in the end, where Belinda does her job, goes above and beyond. This person of color who does like everything, even stuff that the manager should be doing. And the one thing she wants is to open up her wellness clinic. And Jennifer Coolidge says, "Hey, I'll think about it. I'll help you." And with that promise, she gives everything and more, and is still consumed at the end. Like there was nothing she could have done more, or there's nothing that was missing. She gave literally everything, and she is ultimately consumed. And if you look at Jennifer Coolidge's relationship with the old guy, what was his name? I think his name is like
Right.
Bob or Greg. I think that Jennifer Coolidge's character was afraid of unpredictability, and her mother was taken from her. You know, she relies on like having like a backbone or someone completely like straight and narrow so she can like do whatever she can do on, you know what I mean? And Belinda was like that. So
Mhm.
as soon as Greg comes into the picture, Belinda's role gets smaller and smaller and smaller because she has found something else to consume. And so when she is faced with Greg, who has I guess, a timestamp on him, theoretically, or like, I know this is end. It presents a sort of comfort, you know, because she's like, she is afraid that things will end before they can, or you know, before she can get everything out of them.
Mhm.
She's afraid of things ending before she can consume it all. She feels like she didn't get the best out of her mother. She didn't feel like she could get to know her mother on a deeper level before she passed away. But now she has someone who knows that they will die and who's willing to give them all or give themselves to Greg is willing to give himself to Jennifer Coolidge completely. So Belinda becomes kind of irrelevant at the end. And she never wanted to help him because her intention was not to give, but like everyone else on the show, she is meant to consume. She goes on the island to consume. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. I really like the way that you frame it in terms of consumption, because it makes so much sense in something that I was noticing a lot, especially in the relationship between Olivia and Paula, and then Tanya and Belinda, which was
Mm-hmm.
a sense of ownership. Because that felt so central to Olivia's reaction when she discovers that Paula's, hanging out with Kai and all this stuff, is this idea of that is my person, this person that I have this sense of ownership over, and they're going out and doing nonsense. Whether it was a romantic sense of ownership, whether it's just about control, whatever the case is, you just immediately see that there's this is mine. I brought this on my vacation and it should be about me, but it's that's actually a human being, and you can't do that. And it's the way that they latch onto and then distort the dreams of the black counterpart, where Olivia sees that Paula wants Kai and immediately wants to see that destroyed, but then still pretends that the friendship is there. It's kind of dangling this thing in front of her, and also, hey, you're on vacation with my family. There's an immediate power imbalance there. And then you have Tanya and Belinda, which of course the power imbalance of you know, resort guest and resort guest. It took me a while to get that word. But then also just the promise again of, oh, don't worry, I'm gonna help you start that business that you want. You're so amazing, and I have to work with Belinda. I have to, and it's oh, so you're just presenting the dream that she wants. You're dangling that in front of her, but again, you're just owning her. I have to have her time. At one point, Belinda's like, "Oh, I guess I can take a half day off work to go with you." Girl, go back to work. And why did you think that this white lady was gonna fix everything for you? I was yelling in my screen so many times, girl, you have to know that will not happen. She's not gonna read your business proposal. She's not gonna sit down with you and make your dreams happen. And while I definitely think there's an element of ownership there, and I think that blackness being in those specific roles was important, I think consumerism is just, or the idea of consumption, I think is just a much more poignant way of putting it. That it's this is it's like when you give a kid a toy and they're just okay, this is mine. If you touch it, I'm going to lose my mind. And that is what we see is this is mine, and then they get a new toy and it doesn't matter anymore. It is immediate. It is 2 weeks after Christmas. It's the attention has shifted, and that's it for them.
I think that your point is made clear when Jennifer Coolidge literally gives money. You know, this was a service, right? This is and I guess maybe a tip or payment. She pays her, and I'm like, damn. After all that, I bet it's not. I bet it's not that much too. Just maybe a couple $100, and that's it. Man, she literally bought and paid for your time and energy. Damn.
And there's a bit of an upscale Mammy thing going on there.
Mm.
People like to throw around Mammy every time a bigger black woman exists. They were calling Lizzo a Mammy a couple weeks ago, but in a very real sense of a black woman put into this maternal state specifically for white people. And normally you see that in the care for white children, and that was kind of born out of especially post-slavery relations. But what you actually see there is you have Tanya who has lost her mother, and there's some moments with her and Belinda that are just distinctly maternal. I think one of the times, Tanya's freaking out about Lord knows what, and Belinda just sort of takes her, and it's this cradling moment. And even just the idea of her working at the spa and being well, I'll take personal time out to care for you. where she becomes just like this paragon of like care, and this replacement for the mother figure until she doesn't need her anymore. Where it's like, oh, is this how rich people get their Mammy figures? With
Mm.
some special meditation and a bit of chanting and then business deals? Like, is that what is that an element of the critique that's happening? I don't necessarily think they were watching carefully enough to see how they were constructing her as like a switch on the Mammy, but I definitely do think that, like you said, the idea of disposable and here's your money, like I got what I need, here's your money, move on, um, definitely present.
Mm. I think what bothers me most about that relationship is that I don't know if I would have changed the outcome.
Mhm.
You know, like I think the message hits home that she saw Belinda as this disposable object, but I don't know if I would change it to make it better. You know what I mean?
I don't think
Like,
either.
yeah, I don't like. I wish there was a counterpoint to that because, like, I think the Olivia and Paula relationship is like a mirror and a parallel to this Belinda and Jennifer Coolidge relationship. But in the show, there is no, I guess, I don't know, like a there is no counter narrative. Yeah, there is no counter narrative in the entire show to really balance that out. You know what I mean?
Yeah, maybe that's part of why the show, because I honestly I really liked Tanya and Belinda were my favorite parts of the series. Yes, I am a Jennifer Coolidge stan, but also they were just my favorite parts. Like you said, like Jennifer Coolidge manages to hold like the thesis of the show. And I love being angry at people I'm on screen with. And I'm like, Belinda, girl, again, why do you think this white woman is going to help you? Like, through? Like, what have you been through? Like, do you need to call HR? Like, what's going on? But, um, but like at the same time, it's like I liked it because it felt too real. It was like, oh yeah, you just, they come off nice, you trust the wrong person, they take you as a friend, but you are a friend for now. So I really appreciated that. But I think maybe part of why I grapple with the series is, like you said, it doesn't really offer counter narratives.
Actually, you know what? You wait. Okay, you know what? Okay, I thought about something. I thought about something. Wait. All right. Tell me if this is a new thought. This is a new thought. Okay.
I'm ready.
What if the counter narrative to this is Shane and Armand, the hotel manager? Armand is also a product of consumption that ultimately dies, but throughout the entire series, he's almost kind of resisting being consumed. In a way, he is fighting a back with Shane about what his wants and needs are. And like, oh, we want this hotel, but this, that, and the other. By the way, the pineapple room that they eventually got was terrible. Way worse than their original room, by the way, but that's beside the point. So, like, he is constantly fighting back about being consumed. Is that the counter narrative, or is that because he is ultimately consumed at the end of the day? And Armand's not the nicest guy anyway. You know what I mean? I don't know. What do you think?
See, the way that I saw Armand is like rogue consumption, because once he gets into, I think now we put up the big red flags. This is spoiler zone. We're officially in spoiler zone. If you haven't watched the series, go watch it. We got stuff to talk about. Go mind your business. Um, like especially when he gets into with like the drugs and the drinking, and then even like with the whole thing with Dylan, which was interesting. I feel like he was just consumption gone rogue, and in some ways we're supposed to see him and Shane just as clashing, and like I felt like their relationship in the ultimate end of spoiler death. Um, like I know, right? I felt like in that I saw like self destruction, because they both are just like
Oh.
they're both in the role of consumer. Even though he's serving on the island, he's ultimately also like taken care of by the island. He doesn't have a stake in it, and it is in that moment where they're fighting over the same thing as they keep like spiraling in their unending drive that it becomes self-destruction to me, which I liked because that was, I think, close to a. I like things that have a little bit of a fable feel to it. It was close
Mm,
to giving us that nice ending to me.
okay, I have a thought now. I have a thought. This is the premature thought. I think the only reason that Armand is allowed in the narrative to kind of resist consumption or become a consumer himself is because he's a white man. You know what I mean? He is the only one on the kind of island slash hotel side that is allowed to be a consumer in and of himself. And I think that's, are the writers intentional with this? I don't know, but he's the only one that can because he is also a white man. He has the ability to consume. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree. And so much of the series is like, did the writers mean that? It's a lot to talk about. But did they mean that? And now that we've gotten to the spoiler, I will say I thought Sydney Sweeney's character Olivia was going to die.
No, there was no way. Why would you
But
think
see,
that?
you see how much of a shock that would have been?
There's no way.
I was
No
listen,
way.
listen. She's gonna get her HBO check one way or another. She's gonna bounce from this over to the other show, but she's gonna
Euphoria?
Euphoria.
Yeah.
She's gonna get her HBO check one way or another. She's getting her Fenty check as well. She got all sorts of things going on.
No comment. No comment.
Hey,
Hey, I mean, I think I'm surprised Sydney Sweeney is the one getting these checks from Euphoria, honestly. You know, not like what's her name? Barbie Ferreira, or I think that's her name. And what's her name? Hunter? I think what's her last name? The person who plays Jules. Yeah, Hunter
yeah,
Schafer, who's also incredible in that show. But I guess hey, it's Hollywood. Of
yeah,
course the regular white woman is gonna get the checks and get the work.
exactly, exactly. And, I mean, that's a big part of that show is like the writing is sometimes overdone, a little heavy-handed on the pen, but the actors. I mean, there's just so many brilliant actors in it. Um, so I think I was like, they're gonna kill Sydney Sweeney. We know she's good. She's taken care of. It just there was also so much going on with the books that characters were reading.
Mm.
Especially Sydney and or Olivia and Paula kept reading books that were very anti-imperialist, anti-capitalist. And I'm like, hey guys, are you actually reading that? And again, on the topic of it feeling too, its release time being almost too poignant. I've literally read Instagram posts from people in the past month that were like, so I recently visited Hawaii and it was the most beautiful experience of my life, but don't go. It's like, wait, what? Like, you so explain that to me. Like, let's unpack that. Like, seeing that on Instagram and then watching that character on the screen in full color, I was like, oh, you guys have walked around a liberal arts campus. You are on the pulse of things. And it just felt like it would be the most shocking, but also one that's like a point I would expect to be made from older writers trying to write Gen Z.
Really interesting, because like in my mind, she was the only safe person, Olivia, because I hope I'm not too political. I hope I'm not political, but I feel like she was the only safe one because I feel as though
America doesn't like white women dying.
yes, that's it. You know, if Sydney McSweeney was the one who died, the whole show would have been about her death in a way. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, when there's a dead white girl on TV, that is the top
Yeah.
show. That is your Pretty Little Liars. That is your Twin Peaks.
Hmm.
Uh, teen, the death of a blonde white woman is enough to rally an entire show and keep it going for seasons. Which is why I thought she was going to die. For all the reasons that you felt she was safe, it just would have been so much more shocking And then I
Hmm.
would also be like right now, you could give me a season 2 or you could not. You've given me a lot to talk about. Now, if he had died, let's sit down and let's get into the season of this. Let's talk about.
Mm. Really? Okay, let you go first. I want to hear your thoughts.
Well, well, first, is that Freddie we hear in the background?
Yes, his little paws. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry.
No, it's so cute. Listen,
Unprofessional.
people don't people on TikTok think that your name is Freddie?
Yep, every single time. He's a
No,
terrible roommate.
setting the record straight. Freddie is indeed a canine pal.
Yep, he's a guy who does not care if I'm on a call or not. Does not care.
I absolutely love it. I'm not with my dogs right now, but yeah, they would be making some noise. But yeah, like looking at Sydney Sweeney, she is very much a young white woman, and in this, she's also just like hard to like, and that is a little bit default for that
Mm,
character on TV. You tend to see this outside view of teenage girls as just completely insufferable. And then they add on her sort of like trying to be liberal, trying to be woke takes, and it feels like it's appealing to a wide group of people to make her the common enemy. Whether you don't like her liberalism or you wish she actually did something about these things she claims to believe, uh,
mhm.
however you feel about the show, she becomes an easy common enemy because it's just like, girl, sit down, be nice to your brother, stop fucking up your parents' marriage. Like, just sit down. And when you create a common enemy, that's one that like society has built itself around protecting. We know how far white women's tears can go. Um,
Mm, mhm.
when you make her a common enemy, that's fine. But when you then let that lead to her death, now it gets complicated. Now it becomes a different story that we have to tell, because then we have to react to it. And seeing how each of those characters would deal with her death in particular, I don't know how it would come about. I think would just be devastatingly interesting, especially her father, because that man needs quite a bit of help.
I think the whole family needs a little bit of
Yeah,
therapy.
only a little bit.
Like, I think now that I think about it, like I think the weird thing about that family is that, or I guess a lot of the characters is that I wrote this down. What did I say? What did I say? All the characters are threatened, but they fall into heteronormativity. And then heteronormativity saves them. Like it saves Jennifer Coolidge's character. And once I guess the white family is quote unquote saved from Kai, they fall in line. You know what I mean? And like everyone kind of assumes their place. And like, like the son loves his dad again. The daughter can like talk to her mom about things and they become a unit once
After
that like
the masculine act
yes.
of the mother.
And they have like a common enemy, which is unfortunately Kai, a person of color. Once that's threatened, like they really like gel together and assume their, I guess, American ideal roles. You know what I mean? And once Jennifer Coolidge gets a man, she doesn't need Belinda anymore. And once I guess Rachel is threatened with the possibility of being alone or being embarrassed or at least maybe having the stigma of divorce or loneliness, she falls in line to back to Shane too, in a
Yeah.
weird way.
Yeah, it's very. I find myself quoting it a lot, but it's very James Baldwin. It's he said like whiteness is based off of subjugation, and it's not a true community because it's only based on establishing and ostracizing an other and subjugating another, and it doesn't have unifying qualities. And I think like what you're pointing out in the way that they've like heteronormativity and reestablishing the traditional American white structures for their families and their relationships, like that ends up being their out. And then it's like, oh, the people of color, they do whatever they want, but we're going to fall back in line now because we need to maintain this ideal more than anything else.
Mm. Like, it's almost disappointing if we want to talk about with Rachel and Shane. because I wanted Rachel to get out so bad. The whole show, I'm like, leave this man. This man is terrible in like more ways than I can count. Just awful for awful's sake. And his mother too, even worse. So I was so disappointed. But at the same time, I felt it stayed true to the message of the show.
Mm.
Rachel, I don't know if she saw Paula's and Belinda's storylines, is afraid of also being consumed by, I guess, the heteronormativity of this unit.
I think
She is,
the she's an area where class gets brought into play.
mm,
Not just the, heteronormativity of the unit, but like the class implications within that, where it's like, oh, if I become dependent on you when I should be taking this job opportunity and I should be doing this, like if I become dependent on you and I'm already having doubts about us, you can pull that rug out from under me at any point, but also, how would I leave if I wanted to? Like, I'm
yeah.
stuck. Yeah.
I, I I feel weird about it because there's that scene with Rachel and Belinda at the end where she just wants a lifeline, something. But Belinda was on the wrong day. She's like, I'm out. I'm tapped out. I got paid for my services. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not helping another white woman find her catharsis. She's out. And it wasn't Belinda's responsibility to help Rachel. It was never that. But did Rachel really need Belinda? She really did that one time. If there was ever one white lady to help, man. Oh,
Yeah. And that scene was so bittersweet because as we know, I am on Belinda's side. I'm just like, Belinda, whatever you need, boo. And I was like, yeah, take your rest. But actually Rachel could really use it was just that moment where it's like, oh, I want to feel good about this, but I can't fully feel good about this. That was just a little heartbreaking. Absolutely.
devastating. And I was just like, it stayed true to the message. And I get it. And I love endings like that. It wasn't like a shock or anything. She didn't try to kill anyone or like leave or something. She fell in with the unit. The
Yeah.
whole message of the show. And I don't know if she was consumed.
That was strange. Welcome back.
Oh no, I don't know what happened, but I'm back, everyone.
There you are. Perfect. We love it. Bit of technical difficulties. Wouldn't be fun without them. But
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, you were saying how heartbreaking that moment is and how like it's hard to place, but it does stay true to kind of the heart of what we got from White Lotus, I think.
Unfortunate, man. I hope Rachel comes back. Maybe she'll like it'll be a divorce vacation in season two, but
You
that's
know
not
what?
gonna happen.
As long as Belinda's okay. That's the way it is. But as long as Belinda's okay, I'm okay. Um,
Really?
I also just think I have like a sweet spot for Natasha Rothwell. I love anything she's in. I'm like, you go, girl. But I was also just like, she made that just immediate step of one, giving too much to Tanya,
Mm-hmm.
where it's like, oh, girl, protect your peace. But then also trusting her, that I immediately felt like a protective, like, I was like, oh, girl. Just like black woman solidarity. I was like, oh, baby, you need to get out of this situation. Where's HR? Like, who do we call? Like,
There is no HR with
there's
Armand.
no HR with Armand. Yeah. And another question I wanted to ask you is, did you feel like White Lotus was a satire?
No,
Me neither.
it was never a satire. Like it's funny, and there are satirical elements, but they said everything with their full chest. You
Exactly.
know, it would have been a satire if everyone was on the like guess the same level as Jennifer Coolidge. But Jennifer Coolidge actually this is gonna sound terrible. She actually acted.
Yeah.
She actually gave her like character pathos and meaning and like depth. But there's no. They said everything with their full chest. There was no. Uh, I guess the way that, in my opinion, satire works when it's clearly satire. If you can maybe someone is like confused, it's not working. AKA South Park. I grew up in the generation of South Park where everyone thought like calling me a token at school was funny. Like they took that seriously. And at that point it's not successfully a satire anymore if people are can't tell the difference, you know?
Yeah, I 150% agree. And I felt like, because it's billed as like a dark satirical dramedy or something like along those lines. And it's like, that's a cop out.
Mm-hmm.
I think they know that they are trying to critique a lot within their show. They worried about the execution, and I think labeling it a satire forces people to recognize that there's critique happening. And it's like, you should, if you actually aimed for this to be a satire, you really missed the mark. If you aim for
Mm-hmm.
critique and you felt that concern that people wouldn't see it, there might be more work to do in the narrative before you can bring that to an audience. Whether or not I think more work should have been done on White Lotus, I think is a mystery, but just as a marketing decision, I was like, satire? Who wrote that? Who wrote that in
Mm-hmm.
the board meeting and who passed it on? Like, what happened there? So I was curious if you watched it and felt like it was satirical.
There is nothing satirical about like the Olivia versus Paula relationship.
Mm,
That there's nothing that's over the top or can be like Olivia is not a stand-in as much as we want her to be for like white Gen Zers. You know what I mean? And like Paula doesn't stand for every person of color. There's no straw man argument here. There's no like
I felt
anything
no
like
relation
that.
there.
Exactly. So like it's hard because I know people like Paula. Like I grew up with people like Paula. And like in ways I was Paula at the same time. And that I don't know if this makes sense, but I don't know if you can relate to this at all, but like when people categor like put you in the category of a respectable black person, when you're young, it kind of changes the way you see other people of color.
Mhm.
If that makes any sense. Like when I was young, I was the respectable black boy. And that caused me to look down on some of my other people of color peers that I guess in my young eyes couldn't, I guess, placate to the white
Mm.
people. Does that make sense?
No, yeah, absolutely. Like, because that's, I mean, it's real. Like, we all either experience that or see that. Like, it's, I think, just another tool of whiteness is to say you're okay, and that means they're not. And
Mm-hmm.
to use that, and then, like you said, like especially when people are young, it becomes a thing they either unlearn you or they're Paula,
Yeah, and
and she's
what?
got time.
Yeah,
So hopefully,
like yeah, the worst part about Paula is that her solution to Kai's problem is to, yeah, just steal her bracelet. It's not going to affect me. Like, I would not do this, but you can. Like, like, just steal it. Like, what kind of, like, what? Like, uh, lots of thoughts about Paula. And she just didn't come back to him, didn't try to rescue him because there was nothing she wanted to do or wanted to risk to do it.
yeah, I 150% agree. I think it's funny that like in the beginning it seems like Shane and Rachel are going to be a big part, especially because Shane introduces to us in the first episode the fact that somebody dies.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then even in our discussion, and definitely while I was watching it, our interest fell mostly with Olivia and Paula and Tanya and Belinda. And it's, I mean, the relations between white women and black women are never uninteresting. But if I'm not mistaken, this show was led by a white man, and that the fact that he captured any of that is interesting.
Yeah, like, I, that's where I get off or I'm mixed on the show is that if this white man is telling the story about how white people consume other things like cultures, money, people, then I think he did technically a good job in showing that. And that is the reason why we don't get more of characters like Kai and Belinda and the woman who was pregnant at the beginning and we never see them again because of reasons, you know. I think that's the reason why we don't see them. And if that's the point of the show, then yes, it's successful, you know, but it doesn't stop me from asking these questions, you know.
Yes. Yeah, it's one of those things where intent is a very big part of how we view like the success of this show.
Mhm.
Um, I can't say I was like bored at any points. I enjoyed watching it.
I told you to watch it. I gave it to you. I was like, oh,
Yes,
she's
yes.
gonna love this. She's
Give
gonna love
full
it.
credit. Give full credit to Justin on this. And I think as we talk about it more, uh, and verbalize the thoughts, I'm warming to it. Still has issues like any show, but I'm definitely. Let's do this. You already mentioned this kind of idea of how to view television has its flaws. How to view any media, really. So we've given all of our nuance. We've given the depth of our thoughts. Now, if we're going to summarize that in like an out of 10 rating for the series overall, how are we feeling about it?
I'm going to give this uh, seven. How about 7 bottles of suntan lotion out of 10?
We're going with bottles of suntan lotion.
That's what I'm doing because everyone needed suntan lotion.
That,
Everyone was going to be burnt.
that is very true. I will give it. I'm around 6.5 or 7 bottles of aloe vera.
Fair, fair, fair.
They're gonna get burnt one way or another. So, I mean, I absolutely love this chat. Like I said, for anyone watching, expect Justin to be as often
Yeah.
as he can get his attention, a regular guest of the show. Absolutely follow Justin on TikTok at Freddie's Roommate. Give him all the love, give him all the fashion advice as well. And maybe mention some other things you talk about. You talk about Dungeons and Dragons and
Oh yes,
you know,
Deja. I feel like you would love Dungeons and Dragons. I feel it.
I'm told. And I was supposed to join like a game or whatever campaign,
Yeah.
like campaign, and then life happened, and I'm not in it. But I'm told I would enjoy it. And your videos, along with like my friends, like Amelia Sam, like I'm I'm ready.
Oh my gosh, it'd be so fun. Oh my gosh, you, me, and a million a day. Oh, we gotta make this happen. We
Yeah,
gotta
like,
make this happen. We'll stream it. Oh my genius, genius.
absolutely. So yeah, tell them what else you're up to, you're doing, you're talking about.
Yeah, you can find me on TikTok at Freddy's Roommate, and on you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at I am Justin Jordan. But mainly on Twitter, I'm tweeting about Bachelor in Paradise and the Bachelor franchise right now. It's getting pretty good. It's getting pretty juicy. So if you want to follow me, any TV opinions, and if you want to follow my life, go to Instagram or TikTok. So thank you so much for having me, Deja. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Are there any ways people can support you?
Ooh, I my Venmo's and my TikTok, so
Here we go.
$5, and I'll wear something you want me to.
There you go. So, TikTok, Freddie's Roommate, Twitter and Instagram, I am Justin Jordan. Hit up that Venmo too while you're at it, since we've taken so much of his time and enjoyed all of his insights. Yeah, I don't know. I just had a ton of fun. As always, I believe in you. You are more than your last mistake, and I love you. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Have a wonderful day.